Friends and subscribers, this is China News for March 2015. The news here in China for this month has to do with the meeting of the Chi-Coms in Beijing. Here's a photo of Li Keqiang at the National People's Congress in Beijing in the Great Hall. And among the many topics that have been discussed there have to do with the economy and the new normal, as they term it, for China, a 7% growth estimate for this year, and also new laws that pertain to local administrations at the city, provincial, and other county areas throughout China, making this meeting of the Central Party to be one of the most productive, at least on paper, in quite some time. Now, a lot of criticisms are still coming out against the ruling party of about 2,000 central members of the Communist Party that really call the shots, and other influential people behind the scenes. But for the most part, there's a handful of very powerful inside leaders and about 2,000 of them that are card-carrying members. And the criticisms go as far as saying, well, this is just lip service, and it's more really of a consolidation of power in reference to the crackdown on corruption and the anti-graft probes around China, which are hitting news wires everywhere. But they still have snagged, in my opinion, far too few of the big fat cats to make it really convincing for me that this anti-corruption crackdown is going to be something that's going to change the cultural norms of China. Earlier this month, Britain's Prince William, Duke of Cambridge, visited China's several cities, including Beijing and Shanghai, to, among other things, promote relations between the UK and China. It's the first time that a high-ranking royal has visited the Chinese mainland since 1986, when Queen Elizabeth II toured. Now, the main question is this: what is Prince William doing talking with the leader of China, Xi Jinping, about? And why, if the royals claim that they don't have any participation in business interest or national and international politics, why do they get audiences with leaders of the world and business community? That question has never been answered in the mainstream press. However, it's disgusting to see a so-called royal be worshipped in Asia and people groveling to his every need when he's supposed to be just a figurehead. A figurehead indeed of what? Chinese President Xi Jinping meets old friend of China, Henry Kissinger, in Beijing. I'm not sure why they view him as an old friend of China, being that Mr. Kissinger is a war criminal and was involved as one of the key architects of the bombing campaigns in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia that inadvertently killed hundreds, if not thousands, of Chinese troops that were fighting with the North. So Mr. Xi Jinping has mixed up his history or fails to understand what Mr. Kissinger has been involved in. Now, he's in China, and Xi Jinping recognizes Kissinger as trailblazer. Trailblazer of what? Of warmongering, of lying to the American people, and of exaggerating body counts in Vietnam during the 1970s. Curious times, my friend. You're looking at a 5-ounce square-shaped gold bar issued by the People's Bank of China. This lunar year bar, Year of Sheep, is priced at a face value of 2,000 yuan. Of course, the retail price is much higher than that, but it is showing that the new year has picked up gold and silver sales as it does every year in China, and shows that Chinese are still investing their savings in gold and silver as a hedge. And the recent drops in gold and silver prices have made the Chinese price-savvy customers very happy indeed. And if there's a continued slide in price, the Chinese will simply buy more, which is exactly what you should be doing as well, because this low-price discounted precious metals is not going to last forever, and we've been given a great gift. Cartoon of the month says Lone Fight. This is a depiction of Hong Kong and in a fight with Beijing to help secure Hong Kong's rights that were promised to it. And there's a Union Jack towel on the ropes there, and boy, do they wish that they still had that preferential situation that they've had for so many years in Hong Kong, and now Beijing bearing down on them. Another cartoon of the month shows President Obama and the Iranian leader on a table with a nuclear symbol on it and a huge elephant in the room. Never mind the elephant in the room, that this could be nuclear holocaust if the United States and allies go down the path of war with Iran much further. Now, this cartoon should, in fact, have Bibi Netanyahu on one side and perhaps Vladimir Putin on the other. That would be a more interesting dynamic in the cartoon. But you can really play musical chairs with anything in this type of cartoon, because any type of war that involves Iran, Russia, any problems in the Ukraine, any major problems in China and the Far East, and you've got thermonuclear war on your hands, okay? Nuclear holocaust, that's what we're talking about here. So cooler heads must prevail, because this can lead nowhere. Another telling cartoon of the month shows two nations, China and United States, with huge pollution problems, smokestacks on top of their heads, and Beijing claiming that they're a scapegoat for the whole carbon tax debate. You see Uncle Sam there trying to dictate to the Chinese panda about pollution when Uncle Sam himself has a bleeding hole of pollution coming out of its smokestack. You're looking at a set of master drawings and sheets that a man now in his 70s and in custody used to create 96% of fake notes circulating throughout China and abroad. Believe it or not, the man surnamed Peng basically made these replica Chinese counterfeit notes without using a computer, all by hand. He etched it by hand, and the notes are very close to being dead on. Now, there's 1,000 cases each year of fake notes circulating in China that the police are investigating. 532 million yuan amount of fake money confiscated last year. So how much is in circulation? Actually, much, much more than that. And that's one of the main problems with China becoming anything close to a world reserve currency, when there's so much counterfeit notes in circulation and the banks are so untransparent when it comes to shadow lending and how they do their money issuance. Now, the master forger basically continued to commit the crime for years without being noticed. However, no fake banknotes carry all the anti-counterfeiting features found on real notes. There are 32 points on a renminbi note that are anti-counterfeiting. I will show you those in an upcoming video. So basically, to create a note that is almost identical is nearly impossible without the use of the computer. But this man here did it and was very successful for years with it. France, Germany, and Italy joined the AIIB, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, that's founded $50 billion bank, which isn't significant, but it is a step in the right direction as these countries consider the alternative to U.S. dollar dominance and Western influence. They're dipping their toes in the water to check the conditions, basically. in case the dollar does collapse and if there's a deterioration of relations in the West, they want to make sure that they have something in place with the Far East so that they can kind of play both sides of the fence, if you know what I mean. Well, we've heard about the AIIB agreement here this month, but what we haven't heard much of is the ADB. Okay, 27 countries have signed up to join the AIIB, but Japan, Australia, and South Korea remain absent through objections from the West. The Asian Development Bank finance minister has been flirting with Christine Lagarde from the IMF about this ADB, which doesn't get as much press as the recent AIIB agreements. Now, Christine Lagarde saying with some rich countries joining, this will help improve the bank's credit rating, as if we need another world banking system, clearinghouse for nations to enter into to give these high interest loans to countries that can't afford to possibly pay them. Just what we've been talking about, push for yuan as IMF reserve currency. Included in the basket of the currencies, perhaps, and this is something that the Chinese have been working through back channels on for years now, and there's a reasonable high chance that this year the vote will go China's way to include it as part of that SDR basket, and perhaps more, depending on how things go and how things break with the dollar. There's no telling how much influence the Chinese yuan could have. But like I've said before in a previous video, the Chinese are still a very long way away from having the yuan be anything near a world reserve currency. Bitcoin's stealthier threat to China won't go away soon. Despite crackdowns in the use of Bitcoin in China by Beijing, trading in the cyber currency has increased. In fact, Goldman Sachs put out a report saying that the yuan is now used in 80% of transactions into and out of the cyber currency, topping the US dollar. This isn't the first time it's happened, though. In late 2013 also, there was about a 50% rate of yuan trading in Bitcoin, and then that went into a lull when Bitcoin price crashed, and now it's picking up again. Now, don't confuse this activity with quality of Bitcoin. Think of it more as a speculative play by Chinese investors who don't have any other place to put their money to get the kind of returns that they want. This much has been admitted by Bitcoin investors in China. Also, a big part of this has to do with Xi Jinping's anti-corruption crackdowns. The graft probes have been going out throughout China the past couple of years and are increasing. Where else can a corrupt Chinese politician and businessman put his money, except for in cryptocurrency, where he can keep it secret or somewhat relatively secret, because as we know, it is not completely anonymous to use cyber currency. There is a trail, a digital trail that any savvy hacker or any government can find out about, and that is probably what's going to happen as Beijing prepares for another crackdown, because they're trying to promote stability here in China and trying to cool down hot money in the economy. And when they see this kind of activity and they don't have any control over it, that's a big problem, because Chi-Coms love to have control. And Bitcoin is not the only cyber currency that Chinese are throwing their money into. China orders more than 600,000 tons of Ukrainian corn, further shipments expected. These are the type of deals that are upsetting the West, because U.S. right now has a glut of corn, and basically they're not able to sell all of the corn they've been producing. And when China orders this much corn from Ukraine, and no, not the Russian-led Crimea Ukraine, but the pseudo-government Khazar pseudo-leaders in Ukraine, the ones that are inserted by the West, hint, hint, they're the ones that are doing this deal with China. So interruption basically in corn futures. Check corn futures, because U.S. corn futures fell with this news, and there could be more downside risks to U.S. corn futures. This is key. Power consumption falls 6.3% just in February. This shows us a slowdown in China. If you check the power consumption rates, you can apply that to factories and transportation and many other areas. And it shows that China's prediction of a 7.7% GDP growth rate adjusted to 7% may have to be adjusted again because factories simply aren't putting out as much as they were in the past. And the world financial slowdown is continuing and worsening. Parallel trading or import-export through Hong Kong, SAR, and mainland China. Powder formula, diapers, health food products, red wine, and cosmetics are the major products that are being imported and exported illegally through the border to avoid paying taxes and get some products in mainland China that are not offered there. So it's a big industry. In fact, I know a family that makes 5 times the Chinese salary just by doing this full time. And it's very profitable. And since the Hong Kong dollar is weaker than the Chinese yuan, it becomes even more profitable for mainlanders to do this. Now, there are 4,986 cases of illegal export and powder formula. 5,000 persons arrested, and this is just from March 2014 to February 2015. 61,200 kilograms of powder formula seized. 5,919 cases resulted in a court sentence. And there's some of the convictions right there. 28,500 people were refused entry into Hong Kong during that year. 180,000 Hong Kong residents visiting the mainland daily. So it goes both ways. You have mainlanders coming in, you have Hong Kong residents going out, and they have a chain of smuggling that actually drives the black market, which I talk about a lot as being much larger and much more important to the economy than anyone's willing to admit. Okay, in the southern city of Shenzhen, 7,535 license plates go on sale for the highest bidder. Now, this is one of the reasons why you can be thankful that you're not born and growing up Chinese. Here's why. The average price for one of these plates is 22,173 yuan. That's $3,601 equivalent. How does that measure up to license plates in your country? I would be willing to bet that this is definitely on the high end. And the chance, the opportunity to own a vehicle is considered to be really kind of outrageous when you consider that the license plates cost as much as perhaps the lowest cost used car. Rate cuts this month may help steady housing market. That is the news coming out of the Chi-Coms regarding real estate. Now, it's a housing market going here. What we have is home prices rising again. The average price of new homes in Shenzhen hit a record high in February, surging to nearly 27,942 yuan per square meter. That's $4,543 per square meter. That's quite high, but that is in the city center. Okay, what about nationwide? Well, according to a report released by China Index Academy, a think tank, a new apartment among China's 100 major cities in February of this year was 10,539 yuan per square meter with an average month-on-month growth rate of 0.24%. So despite the measures being taken to steady the housing market, in some areas in China it still is going up with increased demand. In others, it is going down and crashing because of ghost cities. Man builds rooftop solar power generator in the center of Shenzhen. The male resident, surnamed Li, was an environmental studies major in college and spent about 50,000 yuan or 7,965 US dollars equivalent building a solar power generator on the rooftop of his 8th-floor building where he lives. It took him a while to construct it, but once he did, the city approved it, and China subsidizes 0.42 yuan for each kilowatt hour of electricity generated by residents. So, basically, before the end of the decade, his 50,000 yuan investment will end up making him a rather tidy little profit.